Today's video is going to be a bit different because I'm going to be going over some releases from the past year that I really wanted to buy, but I didn't buy, and what I'm using instead. This is definitely not a new concept for a video, so I will link any content creators that have done this before. Very similar to videos where people talk about products they wanted to buy but didn't buy, but in this case, I'm going to actually go into my collection and pull out things that these products reminded me of. And then at the end of the video, I will be tallying up the total cost of everything if I had bought everything that I wanted. Two disclaimers: I do get PR from most of my favorite indie brands, which really would be the bulk of what I would be purchasing anyway, as I'm not really too much into mainstream brands. So you're gonna see a little bit of a mix of mainstream. It's gonna be mostly mainstream and then some indies here and there as well. And I also have mostly eyeshadow products because face products like foundations, blushes, bronzers, etc. haven't really captured my attention as much. I just have so many of those products, so I don't really truly feel like I need to buy anymore or really want to try anymore. I have a good amount and formulas that I really love. And actually, there's a third disclaimer: I did receive about half of the products I'm going to be substituting in PR, and so obviously this is through a lens of someone who has a YouTube channel and Instagram. So the first product is pretty recent. It's the new Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette, and this one retails for $69. I do have the other two, so this is something that I can reach for instead of buying the new one. And what really intrigues me with this palette is mostly the fact that there is like one semi-green sparkly shade, and I do really like their sparkle formula, but again, I already have these two palettes. I don't need the other one, so I have this one, which is Moonlight, and then the first one, which is an all neutral palette. So I already have these. I already enjoy the shimmers in here. I feel like, realistically speaking, the mattes probably somewhat cross over, especially with the first palette, and also there's just not enough depth in that new Makeup by Mario palette. There is one deepening up shade in there. So it's not fully truly like speaking to me anyway, but of course I'm a sucker for sparkly shimmers, and I could easily justify this as like, this is for my channel and it will benefit me in the long run. It is a mainstream brand. It would be something I could feature and do comparisons with. Honestly, with that kind of justification, I hardly ever see a return on it. So I just knew it was just not worth it for those sparkly shades and that one semi olivey green tone shade. The other palette that I have that is extremely similar, definitely not in terms of texture, but it's the Beautifying Eye Trends Emerald Effect palette from Charlotte Tilbury that I got last year. It was the beginning of this year. So much time has passed by. It was one of the two palettes that I bought. They had like 7 or something like that of these, or 6, something like that. This one really reminds me of that palette because there's this olivey green in here. There are only 2 mattes, so that does like make it pretty different from the Makeup by Mario palette. The concept of both of these palettes is very similar, and I find that actually the case with a lot of mainstream brands. If they do some sort of a green eyeshadow palette, they tend to do something that's just like ever so slightly olive tone green, and it's pretty soft, and then the rest is browns, but it makes you feel like the rest of the palette is almost slightly greenish and forest leaning, but it's really not. So I'm pretty much all set with this palette, and this palette was pretty penny, even though the packaging is not the greatest. I don't think anyone liked this clear packaging, but I digress. So I saved myself $69 and I don't feel tempted by it anymore. I definitely did for the first like 2 weeks, especially when you're seeing everyone trying it out, doing videos on it. So the next 2 palettes are neutral palettes, so I'm actually gonna kind of lump these together. So one of them is the new stack. Yes, Melt Cosmetics has brought back the stacks, and that is the 12-hour stack. And then also the Natasha Denona neutral eyeshadow palettes, what are they called? Not sure. They will be up on the screen. There's 2 versions. There's like a lighter version and a deeper version. I would have only bought one of them. Which one, I'm actually not sure, because the deeper one has like that burgundy in there, and I just feel like I would probably get a little bit more use out of that one. That being said, I feel like it has a lot of more redundant shades in it, but I'm not going to be calculating in both the prices. So one of the Natasha Denona palettes is $82, and then the stack is $58, and obviously I'm not going to be including any sort of discount codes and or shipping fees here, which would definitely bring up the total sum up quite a bit. Hour stack, so the 12-hour stack really tempts me, mostly because it's very nostalgic, and I'm always curious to see when and if Melt Cosmetics updates their shimmer formula to be just a little bit better. I feel like in this product photo, the shimmers look like they're really beautiful and foiled, but the swatches I've seen of these, they're really not. They kind of seem more like a standard mainstream shimmer shade, which is not to imply that that's bad. It's just not my personal preference, especially for $58. As for the matte shades, I already have those a million times over. So I pulled 4 palettes instead of these 2 palettes to kind of replace these. So first up is the Chicago Speakeasy palette from Nomad Cosmetics. And this one's like a little bit more of an interesting neutral color story because we do have the pop of the green, but I really like the different tones. It's definitely on the warmer side, but we have some mauve tones as well. And then of course the shimmers, like neither of these palettes will even touch these kinds of shimmers. Realistically speaking, I do much prefer overall just this color story and what it gives me. The next palette is a small, concise little palette from Glaminatrix. This is the Elegant Eyes palette, and this is just like a really beautiful 6-pan neutral color story with some warmer tones and beautiful sparkly shimmers. Like both of these brands could never. These are just some of the most stunning shimmers ever, and it is such a cute little concise palette. So again, don't need, you know, 20 shades of neutrals. You just have these 6 and it's perfect. It's small, quality is amazing. And then the next palette is actually a Melt Cosmetics palette, and it is the Rust palette. I'm actually not sure if they sell this one anymore. It is a very, very warm tone, definitely leaning towards the oranges. I think this is a great option instead of the Stack for sure. There are 3 shimmers in here. They are just not the greatest, but overall, like I already have this palette and I think the mattes are great. They do definitely have a super opaque matte formula. I haven't used this one in a while, so it's definitely just like a reminder to bring this back out. This palette actually used to be a Stack, so it's kind of interesting that they have now done like a full 360. And then the last neutral palette is the Unoriginal Nudes from Bella Beaute Bar. And this one, again, we just have all the tones of neutrals. There's some mid-tones, there's some deepening up shades, some lighter shades as well. And then of course, these shimmers are much more up my alley than the Natasha Denona shimmers and the Melt Cosmetics shimmers. Not that I can 100% say that, but from the swatches I've seen, I can kind of already tell I just wouldn't be into those shimmers. So overall, I think this palette just has great coverage between those 2 palettes that I'm just like, I already have this at home. I don't need another neutral palette with some mid shimmers. The next palette would be actually a brand that I've never tried. It is the Byredo Bibliophilia eyeshadow palette. They do come out with these kinds of pretty big, from at least what I've seen, they're pretty decently sized palettes. They have a very specific look to them, and they come out with these once a year, and they're $115. And I almost bought the one last year, and I almost bought this one this year because I'm just really interested in trying out the formula. I've just never tried it. I do feel like it's not going to be 100% up my alley, but I almost kind of feel like it seems like the shimmers do have a little bit more of like an elevated satin look versus like more of the satins that I tend to see from mainstream brands that are very kind of dusty and dry, and then I'm just not the biggest fan of. So I would like to like eventually try the formula just to have that in my repertoire of formulas that I've tried. So I have instead 2 palettes here to show you. They're both definitely a bit more colorful, and I think that's why I think they're better options. So first is the Bella Beaute Bar Vamp palette. It does have a reddish color story, but there's also purples and neutrals like the cooler tones here. There are 2 shades missing from here. I've actually taken them out. Overall, this is definitely much more exciting. I think it offers, if anything, more variety, so that's why I do like it. And of course, the shimmers are way different than the Byredo. Even though I really want to try the Byredo formula one day, I'm kind of really glad I didn't get this one. I feel like overall, how much use would I get out of that one? Really, there's only 2 red shades. The rest of them are just like warmer pinky shades. So first look at the color story. I feel like it feels very reddish, but it's really not. Versus this palette does have a little bit more true reds in here. And then the other palette is the Glamlite Ghost Face Returns, and this one's definitely a bit more heavier on the red. It has a lot of depth that I do not see in the Byredo palette. And then of course the shimmers in here are so stunning. I absolutely love Final Girl, Corn Syrup, and Ghost Face. I feel like those are the stand-up shimmers in here. I feel like there's just like a nice variety of textures and also depth especially. So it's a little bit less variety than the Vamp palette, but again, it's giving me the same vibes as the Byredo palette. Next up are the Patrick Ta duos. Now there are 4 new duos, and I'm not going to fully rule out not getting one of them, but I would only get one of them because each of these is $42, which is a lot. And I do have the previous 4 that have launched before. If I was to get one, I would get the more taupey one called Always On You, I think. And then the 2 like champagne looking ones, they're just, I feel like they're gonna look very similar to some of the other ones that already came out, but I would have to look further into swatches. And then the pinky, the darker pinky one, I would never use that. So realistically speaking, it would just be literally for a video, again, for content, and I just don't think that I can justify that. Also would like to point out, and something I talked about in my video on these, there are different textures and finishes between the duos, and I need to know, like I need to go in person and look at these, which ones have the preferred formula, because some of them were like extra sparkly and then some of them were just like a little bit more smooth, a little bit more almost like not fully satin, definitely like leveled up from a satin, but they were just not quite as sparkly. And I definitely would prefer to not buy those again. Like, it's just not my favorite finish. If I'm going to spend $42, I mean, I want sparkle. So what I'm using instead, I actually built a little palette with my perfect spicy neutral shades. And this is just placed in a ColourPop palette, the 1111, because you can fit the pans in there. But some of the pans are a little bit taller, so it's not fully closing. But I digress. And I just have like all of my indie single eyeshadows in here. Some of them are from palettes. This is Skin of a Killer from the Van palette, actually. There's Glaminatrix in here. There's ShineBySD, there's Terra Moons, and I mean, this is literally perfection. These are all the finishes I love, all the shades I would like some to have a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more variety. A lot of these have different colorful flecks throughout them, and that to me is just something that really stands out, especially when it comes to neutral shadows. I love a more sheer neutral shadow with colorful flecks throughout it. Now, if you were to tally up the cost of this entire palette, more than $168, which would be the total for the 4 new duos, maybe potentially, depending if you bought these on sale and how much your shipping cost was. So like, keeping that in mind, some of these are PR and most of them I purchased, but I just feel like to me they were way more worth it. And now I get to make this beautiful 12 pan spicy neutral palette. The next palette is the Unearthly Cosmetics Gothic Romance palette. I believe it's one of their newest ones. And this one retails for $68. There's only 4 special shimmer shadows. Now, I don't know if these are their like usual formula or if these are the newer formula, because they are in smaller pans, which the newer formula seems to be really squishy, really emollient. So not really something I would want to spend $68 on either, especially because it's mostly mattes and there's only 4 shimmers. In terms of the color story and the way that the mattes are, I feel like I already have palettes that are very similar to this. One of which is the Glaminatrix Cosmetics Barely Basic palette, which I love this palette so much. Obviously not fully the same tones, but we do have more shimmers in here, and I feel like there is a little bit more variety of depth in here as well. I feel like the Gothic Romance palette definitely does seem to lean a little bit lighter overall. Like, we have these kind of lighter shades, but overall I feel like I can get a little bit more depth with this one. In terms of tones crossover, we have the mauves, or they're like burgundy, and then we have the orange, and then we also have the olivey green. Are they exactly the same? No, but I think that they're similar enough. I do love when neutral palettes are laid out that, which is why I have 2 more palettes to show you that are very similar. The next one is the All Done Up palette from Blend Money Cosmetics. I love this palette. This is such a beautiful, more maybe fall themed color story, but very neutral, but also like kind of interesting. There's some more fun tones in here, and I actually feel like this one might be even more similar to the Gothic Romance palette, because this shade is very similar to that center shade called, oh, I can't read that from the picture. It's very similar to that one. We have the orange. We don't have the mauves in here. There aren't dusty purples, but overall I'm getting like a similar grungy tone vibe. And then we do have one more shimmer than in that palette, and these are so sparkly, so beautiful. And also I feel like these were really well curated for this color story. And then there's one more Blend Money palette I wanted to talk about. It's actually, this one came, I believe this one launched before the All Done Up, and this one is even more so similar, I think, to Gothic Romance. So actually looking at this palette and the All Done Up palette, I think they're kind of like crossover and made into Gothic Romance, because we have the more dustier tones, which actually there's definitely more depth in this one. There's the dark brown, and then we do have a little bit of an orange, and then the mauve tones as well. So I feel like this one actually covers that palette pretty well. I wasn't the biggest fan of the shimmers in here. I think some of them are a little better than others. I definitely prefer the shimmers from the All Done Up palette overall, but this is a great formula. So is the other palette, and so is Glaminatrix. So between these 3 palettes, I definitely feel like I basically am like, I have this in my drawer more or less. Then there's 2 more Unearthly palettes, and these are very, very new. They actually, I think they come as bundles. They were only available as like a pre-order mystery box type of thing. There's Shattered Snowfall and then Cursed Winter, and they're so beautiful. I mean, they really knock it out of the park always with color stories. I love these color stories. They truly speak to me. There's something about the grungy tones of the blues and the grays and a little bit of teal. I mean, I just love that. And also, I'm not sure if these are the new shimmer formula or they're the really super ethereal sparkly one that I love from like Sorcerer's Smoke, Gargoyle palette, which this is actually what I'm pulling instead of that one, because I think it kind of gives me similar vibe. For sure not the same, but we do have a couple of crossover crossovers with the blues and the grays. It's for sure got differences, but I really enjoy this palette. I love this color story, and I love the shimmers in here. Like the shimmers alone, stunning. I would be more tempted to buy both of the Unearthly palettes if I knew for sure that they were this shimmer formula. So the two palettes together are $116, so they're around $50 for each of the palettes. So I'm gonna break it up a little bit, and the next product is not an eyeshadow palette or an eyeshadow, but these are the Dior Skin Forever highlighters, and they look so beautiful. They actually have really interesting shades with the blues, which I'm really surprised for a more like luxury type of brand, and they look like they give you the most beautiful sheen on the cheeks. And instead of these, I have the ColourPop Super Shocks, which I use these on the daily. I love these so much. These are definitely a forever repurchase if I was to ever really run through these, because I do have quite a few shades that I rotate through, and they last quite a while. So I have Flexitarian, one of my favorites. I also have Candy Floss, and then I also have Stole the Show, and I have some other ones, but these are like kind of my favorite ones, and I just, beautiful finish. I apply these, tap these on with my finger. They melt into the skin. They give you a beautiful sheen, not overly sparkly, and I just feel like these are probably very similar in finish to those Dior ones. So I think I'm all set, and these are like what, $7 or $8, so definitely much more worth it. The next palette is the Lord of the Rings collab palette with Glamlite, and this one I wanted it so bad because I love Lord of the Rings. I truly just wanted to get the palette because nostalgia, I love the series, and I just decided to wait and hold off a little bit, and now I feel like I no longer even want it for the nostalgic reasons. The excitement has worn off a little bit, and I actually have a palette that I feel like gives very similar vibes, and it is the Blend Bunny Sugar and Spite. They did rename this, they relaunched it. It is magnetic. I purchased it because I was like, I need this palette with magnetic pans. So if it looks like it's brand spanking new, it's because it is. It's just rearranged. They did rearrange the pans. They used to be by color, just like most Blend Bunny palettes. I could even order these around to be more like the ones in the Glamlite palette. There's the gray, there's the red, which this one's definitely more of a pinky red. There's some purples, there's some greens as well. I think really mostly missing like the dark blue and the orange pop, but I feel like it's just overall the gist is very similar. So I can just dip into this one, use it for the first time since using the previous version of this palette, which I do have, which I did do a dedicated video on, and I'm excited to have more magnetic pans from Unearthly Cosmetics. So I feel this one is plenty similar with a bit more extra, and if I really wanted some of those tones that are in that palette, I could just pull from other palettes. And that Glamlite palette retails for $38. Now they do have sales quite often, so I could probably get it for as low as like $25, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be adding it up as $38. The next two palettes, I'm just going to kind of lump together. They're mostly all shimmer palettes with some mattes in there. I'm actually not sure if the Zamaya palette does have any mattes in it. I don't think technically. It's a revamped version of their previous Industrial 2.0, which I do have this palette. I think I saw that they switched out some of the shades. Oh my god, this is so impossible to open. When I really think about it, when is the last time I thought to reach for this palette? I absolutely do not need another version of this, just in a different packaging and some slightly different shades. Also, I don't like the packaging of this one. It looks like either a bean or it looks like a bedpan. And also I just don't love how some of the pans are slightly smaller. So overall, I feel like I already want to have this, like for sure. I literally have it. And this palette retails for $110 palette. The other palette is the newest Pat McGrath, the holiday release or fall release. I'm actually not sure. They might probably release another one for like actual holiday December, and that is, I forget what this one is called, and this one is called Gilded Nirvana Mega Eyeshadow Palette. It is predominantly shimmers, and honestly I think the only thing that's exciting about this palette is that like kind of limey green looking shade, which actually it doesn't really even look like that in some of the pictures, and then the purple, like if you literally cover those two, it's just another like mostly shimmer palette with some neutrals, and this one retails for $72. And none of these are the baked formula. They actually seem like they're more on par with the shimmers from like their other holiday releases from previous years, but also more so the ones from maybe the Mothership, the most recent Mothership that didn't have the astral shades. If a couple of the shades were astral shades, I think it'll be a different story. I might have been much more likely to purchase it, waiting for a sale or something. I just know I have better shimmers that I much prefer. So I did pull a couple of all shimmer palettes here. So first and foremost, I have the Garden of Stars palette that is like a semi-recent, within the last couple of months launch. It is an all shimmer palette. These are so spectacular. This is in collaboration with Alice Atlantis. This is just so beautiful, so spectacular. Magnetic pans, can add some mattes in here, make a beautiful, neutral palette or a little bit more colorful palette as well. So I just feel like I literally have that, but better. So, and I think this palette is like $48 or something like that before a coupon, which I think is an absolute steal for how many shimmers you're getting. They are smaller pans, but honestly, I don't think that really matters. I think this is so much more worth it than both of those palettes put together, not just like pricing wise, but also like what you're getting. I just much prefer the Garden of Stars. I think I keep calling it Sea of Stars by accident. And the other two all-shimmer palettes I have, these are more on the pricier side as they are full-size pans and they are just super special shades. So I have the Dewdrops palette. This is the first one, and then also the Dewdrops Part 2. And I mean, you have some beautiful toppery like shades. There's also a marbled shade, and these are just spectacular, super sparkly. And then the Dewdrops 2 palette has this beautiful shade that has different colorful flecks throughout it, and so does Mist as well. And then you have a split pan, and then you have this really shifty, really beautiful multi-chrome. So overall, like, these are just so much more interesting, much more exciting to me and my preferences than either of those palettes could ever be. So I feel like I'm definitely like all set. And the last product, or should I say products, are the Color Fix sticks from Danessa Myricks. I do plan on buying just one during one of the Sephora sales. There's 10 different sticks to choose from, so there's absolutely no way I'm buying all 10. I'm having a lot of trouble in deciding which duo I want to buy. The thing with these is, if they were individual shades and not duos, I would be much more likely to buy more. They are $38 each, which obviously you're getting 2 shades for one. But do you need 2 shades? Because I don't like the fact that they're like, oh, you can switch them out. You can make your own duos, favorite duos, but you have to buy all of them in order for you to be able to do that. And I don't like them pre-deciding what the duos are already, because I don't really like both of the shades in majority of these. So it's kind of like I don't want to pay for both when I don't really want the other shade. So I just feel like this is kind of a little bit of a miss for me, because you're already determining what the consumer has to buy for them, and they have to like both of them. Similarly, how I felt about the Patrick Ta duos, just no reason to do duos. You're already deciding for people what shades they have to buy together for $42. So also I would have rather have seen these be at a lower price tag, like $25 for one or something like that. So rant aside, I don't know which one to choose, but I would choose only one just to try out the formula. It looks like one of the shades is a little bit more like a smoother, more opaque type of finish, and the other side is like a super dazzly, sparkly finish. And the reason I'm not definitely getting all of them, even though again I could do it for a video, I don't think it would be worth it. And also I am currently working on an eyeshadow stick video, and I am just swimming in eyeshadow sticks because they just keep coming out with them. So I have a basket of eyeshadow sticks to try out, and most of these I purchased myself. And so stay tuned for this video, but I don't know when it's coming, but it won't be until I get one of the Danessa Myricks sticks. Definitely feel like after trying all these different brands and all these different finishes, I feel like it's such a hit or miss for me with eyeshadow sticks. So I'd rather just not risk it, which is why again I just want to try one. And if I'm absolutely like completely smitten by it and I'm like, this is worth $38, absolutely need more shades, I would get more shades. But when it comes to eyeshadow sticks, I would highly recommend only getting one before you go and buy more, because you're not gonna know what the formula is and how you jive with it until you actually try it. So those are all the new makeup products I wanted to talk about. It is of course mostly eyeshadows, as I love me some eyeshadow. This would be more of a range if I'm calculating all the Patrick Ta, all the Danessa Myricks. So in total, it's $1,252 that I'm saving by not buying all of these products essentially. And for this total, I am calculating in all the Patrick Ta shades and all the Danessa Myricks shades as well. And also shipping is not included in here, and I would say that would at least be like $100 with the shipping, plus or minus with some discount codes as well. So probably around another $100, $150. I definitely think adding it up just puts it into such perspective. Let me know in the comments below if there's any makeup that you have resisted. Do you have any of these products that I wanted to buy? I would love to hear your thoughts on it and if you felt like it was worth it. And that's everything with this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.